Just a few short months ago, since learning of the existence of New York City's BQE Interstate Highway, I've been totally fascinated by this piece of crumbling infrastructure, and I've been dreaming of building it one day in City Skylines 2. And just recently, just a few weeks ago, I was fortunate enough to travel to New York City for just a week-long vacation, and I made sure to free up enough time in my itinerary to travel to the BQE, to walk alongside the beautiful parkway, and to just fully explore this piece of infrastructure. And it was an amazing experience. I'm really glad I did it. And it gave me a different perspective exploring this region in real life versus just flying over it in Google Maps. And it wasn't until I got the chance to explore the BQE in real life that I realized, okay, I'm ready to build this piece of infrastructure in City Skylines. And that is exactly what we're going to be doing today in Oxburgh. So you're definitely going to want to sit down, relax, grab some popcorn for this one, because this is going to be pretty crazy, guys. I've never built anything like this before, and it's going to be a challenge. But stay tuned, because it's going to be awesome. So the first portion of this episode is going to be the construction of the BQE, which should probably have its own name with it being in Oxburgh. So I'm going to leave that up to you guys. If you have an alternative name to the BQE that maybe fits the Oxburgh setting a little bit better, or maybe if we can recycle the BQE acronym, that would be really cool. I feel like it would have fit a little better in Bixton, having that B in the name, maybe we would have been able to fit it a little better, but I'll let you guys use your imagination. If you could come up with a name for this new stretch of highway that I'm about to build, please drop a comment down below. But yeah, we're going to spend the first half of this episode building this BQE stretch of highway, but not only this stretch of highway in particular, we're actually going to be building a huge highway leading across downtown. And this is going to be one of the most vital pieces of road infrastructure in the city. And why am I doing this now? Well, I have a master plan for downtown, and I thought to myself, being forced to construct this piece of highway when downtown would already be built would have been an extremely difficult challenge. So I thought it would be easier to just build the highway first, and then I'm going to build downtown around it. But I'm going to remain very conscious of kind of the city's history. And we can assume that this highway would have been built long after downtown was already developed and all built up. However, by leveraging the hilly terrain on this side of the canal, the destruction of downtown would have been kept to a minimum because the highway was stacked rather than being built flat. And the cliff that we're building this stretch of road on is actually quite steep, and it would have been safe to assume that not much would have been built here in the first place, making it a perfect location for such a highway. Now, building such a highway in the game was no easy task. This took a ton of trial and error, it took a ton of experimentation, and a fair number of game crashes as well, as I'm basically just shoving a whole bunch of puzzle pieces together that don't necessarily fit together. This is not supposed to work, but it does. You'll see by the end of this episode, it miraculously works, and it works quite well. Now, you'll see throughout this episode that I'm using a variety of different mods, mostly Move It, a little bit of the extra bulldozing mod, which allows me to remove some unwanted props such as pillars and columns and things that are clipping through the roads. But essentially, I'm mostly using Move It. Essentially what I've done is I've flattened the terrain, except for one little bit where I've made a slight incline in the road as you're seeing me build right about now. And I mean, that has its own set of challenges when you're dealing with wonky terrains. Stack that, no pun intended, on top of, trying to build a really complicated piece of infrastructure, and it makes it almost impossible, but I somehow managed. But yeah, essentially I started with the bottom layer, I built out my stretch of highway, and then what I'm doing for each level is I'm building the same stretch of road, but I'm kind of moving it a little bit, maybe like 30% over to the side. So each layer covers about 60% of the layer beneath it. Give or take. I'm not actually like trying to make this super accurate and whatever. I'm eyeballing this entire thing. The only thing that I really calculated precisely was I plopped a trailer prop on each layer, and I would lower the upper level to just over the height of that trailer, just to make sure that trucks are actually going to be able to drive through here, assuming they are the tallest vehicle. I'm hoping so. But you know, I still want this highway to be as compact as possible, width-wise and height-wise as well, because you know, I don't want this cliff to be like super tall and then it just looks kind of weird. I want it to be as flat as possible. But as you're seeing thus far, I think it's turning out pretty good. And unlike the BQE in real life, instead of just being one stretch of road, maybe not even a mile long, I forget how long this actual part of the highway is in real life, but here in Oxburgh, we actually have kind of an S-turn going along. So, you know, it adds another little layer of complexity to this whole build, but it's gonna look super cool. It already does. So after this S-turn on, I guess, either extremity of it, we're gonna revert back into a conventional side-by-side highway, but it's not gonna be just any old boring highway. I'm actually going to build a sunken highway for, you know, most of this stretch of road. So a bit later on in this episode, you're gonna see me construct some really cool on and off ramps in different spots along this stretch of highway. And, you know, overall, it's just gonna look really cool. And we'll just have to see how this stretch of highway is gonna hold up over time, because it goes right through downtown. It's gonna be one of the most vital pieces of road through the city. And throughout this build, I'm gonna make an effort to balance form and functionality, because although I want this highway to look super cool, I actually want it to work good as well. Now, I imagine that once we finish this stretch of road and we start to expand downtown and all of the neighborhoods surrounding it, I'm assuming that the throughput along this stretch of highway is going to be super high, just due to its geographic location. And I actually want it to work. That would be pretty satisfying. But at the same time, you know, if we're going for a true BQE type setting, the odd traffic jam wouldn't be too bad either, right? You know, these old pieces of highway infrastructure, they tend to get clogged up. They were never designed to handle the amount of traffic that we see today. And, you know, it's not uncommon for them to get just completely bottlenecked and clogged up with traffic. So, you know, it's not the end of the world if parts of this highway are just constantly plugged up with traffic. You know, I am aiming for some level of realism in Oxburgh, and, you know, there's nothing realistic about perfectly functioning highways in a major American city. You know, there's always got to be traffic. But I guess as long as the highway somewhat works, we'll just have to see. But yeah, I imagine that this highway is going to get very busy once we start expanding, and, you know, once we build up all of the neighborhoods around downtown. A lot of people are going to be going to and from work using this road. So I'm excited to see how it's going to function over time. But in just a moment here in a little bit, I'm going to be adding some off-ramps and on-ramps onto the stretch of highway in what I think are going to be the best locations. Now, downtown is already filled with one-way streets going in all different kind of directions. So some of these one-way streets that I'm going to build in the southern part of downtown, or on this side of the canal, I'm going to try to line them up with the highway so that a one-way will just kind of lead into the highway. So hopefully that's going to make it seamless for the traffic that is flowing to and from downtown. And now what I'm proceeding to do is I'm going to start to build a giant interchange between the highway itself and this main arterial road that feeds right into downtown. And this is going to be a very important road as the city grows. And this is essentially going to be the main street of the entire city, this giant 6-lane avenue. This is going to split the island. So don't forget, Oxburgh is kind of built on an island. I know I haven't zoomed out very much in this series to show you the entire island, but it is an island, and this giant avenue essentially splits it in two. It goes right down the middle, and this, of course, is a very, very important road in the city. So there's going to be a pretty vital interchange between one of the city's main highways and this main arterial road, which I forget the name of. Just watching the footage now, I'm not really seeing the name come up on the road. I don't remember all the road names, unfortunately. But anyways, we're building a massive interchange. Well, I shouldn't say massive because it's going to be quite compact with it being right next to downtown. I'm trying to keep everything super smushed together. But I can tell you what, this interchange took me hours to build. I'll just say that. Probably maybe 10 hours or so to put this together. It's gone through various phases. I was debating either going above ground or below ground. I don't know. I completely deleted and redid this interchange like 3 or 4 times before I got it right. So it was certainly quite the project. But in the end, I think it ends up pretty good. I still kind of do have my gripes about it, but you know, sometimes after after spending 10 hours on one interchange, I'm like, all right, you know, it is what it is. Let's move on. Maybe we can revisit this in the future. We'll see how it operates and such. But yeah, this definitely was a big challenge. And in the end, what I settled on after building this major interchange here is I'm going to build a sunken highway for quite a long portion before this highway leads across the city's main river and onto the mainland. And I'm really not going to spend too much time on the rest of this highway. I'm really focusing my attention to the stacked portion of it. And the rest of the highway, I am building it sunken, but on either extremity of this stretch of highway, I'm just going to connect it to major arterial roads that already exist. So most of the major roads that I'll be connecting this highway to are pre-existing and they lead to the edge of the map. And as the city grows and expands over time, then I'll look at expanding these highways further. But, you know, for now, I really just want to build the section that leads right through downtown. And, you know, we'll get started with that, and we'll extend the highway when the demand calls for it. And this is where things are going to get really interesting. So heading back into the stacked section of this highway, I needed to come up with a way to build the back walls for each layer, just like the real BQE in real life. And I had to go through a lot of trial and error for this, because originally when I was planning out this build, I thought I could just build some key walls alongside these roads and it would be a super easy thing. But the problem is, when you build a key wall, it converts your road automatically from a bridge or an elevated section of road into a regular level piece of road with a key wall. And that was completely engulfing each layer under whatever layer I was adding the key wall to. So that wasn't going to work. And it wasn't until I spent some time sifting through all of my prop menus using the Find It mod that I found these beautiful textured wall props. And I believe these are from the French pack. There are also different styles of wall, but these textured walls were by far the nicest in my opinion. There was a pretty nice like white cement kind of texture, but I just found that it was just too bright and it didn't really fit the theme. You know, I kind of want this to look like an old rotten BQE piece of infrastructure, right? It's got to be, you know, old. So that's when I found these beautiful textures in the prop menu. And basically what I'm doing is I'm plopping these in a straight line or in a curve, and then using Move It, I can just slide them right into place and lower them to the appropriate height. And this looks absolutely beautiful as I'm placing all these props here. And this is what allowed me to keep the elevated sections elevated. And over here, just like the beautiful Brooklyn Heights Parkway in real life, there's kind of like this roundabout thing on either end of the parkway. And just by adding a roundabout to this stretch of pedestrian pathway or whatever you want to call it, I was able to kind of build something similar to the real thing in New York City. So with that, the stretch of highway is pretty much complete. This is it in its completed form. So just for another minute or so, I'm still going to be in time-lapse mode as I'm going to begin plopping some of the more iconic office buildings on this side of the canal. I'm not really going to go too crazy. I still want to keep enough room for zoning, and you know, we're going to hop into live play in just a moment here, but I just wanted to plop some unique looking office buildings that haven't yet grown in the older part of downtown. So I'm just kind of exploring through my Find It menu here, gathering a whole bunch of buildings that I think look good in this part of downtown. Alright guys, and we're back in live play, and I just want to quickly give you guys a glimpse over what we've built so far this episode. And although it might look like a giant jumbled mess full of roads sprawling in all different kinds of directions, I want to reassure you guys that what we're going to be building over the next number of episodes is going to be absolutely insane. We've done a ton of stuff this episode that has never been done before, such as the beautiful BQE that we have going on here. But I have a ton of really cool things planned for this downtown area. So I'm going to once again ask you guys to just trust the process, and we're going to clean up this entire downtown area over the next coming episodes. And, you know, it's going to look really, really insane. So what I would like to do now is to zoom in a bit more onto the micro scale of things, and I would like to focus my attention to the surrounding neighborhoods alongside our beautiful BQE highway here. And we're gonna try to get some, you know, New York style apartments going alongside here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back into more of kind of like the zoning side of things. So I'm not really going to be hand plopping a lot of these buildings that I'm about to build. So I'm just going to kind of play around with my zones a little bit here, switching these zones around just so they fit a little better. And let's just keep things simple by zoning some New York row houses. Oh crap, I screwed that up. Here, let me just destroy these homes, and then I'm gonna unzone this little strip of houses. And it looks like the zones are not really cooperating over here in this corner, so I'm just gonna draw a path just like this, so then we can draw some zones alongside this street. And then I can squeeze one more in here. Perfect. And then, you know what, for here, what are we thinking? Are we gonna build in this orientation, I guess? And then perhaps I can go here and then squeeze in, let's see, maybe like one singular apartment with a sideways crane. Excellent. And then what are we gonna do over here? This is gonna be kind of a tight spot. I think if I draw a little alleyway at a perfect 90-degree angle like this, what I'll do is, oops, nope, wrong zone. We'll do this. So I'm not really sure which, oh, okay, so I guess the front of the buildings are gonna be along this main road. Perfect. And we'll have some more apartments along here. So then the back side of these apartments will be facing the water, which is fine. It doesn't really bother me at all. But it's mostly going to be row houses in this area, as it is in real life in the BQE area in New York. And then maybe here, I think I'm just gonna do a medium-sized apartment building, same thing as here. Or actually, you know what, I may wanna hand plop a couple of buildings because my zones are not really cooperating. So what I'll do in this case is I'm gonna go into my buildings, go here, we'll enable filters, and then let's get some New York themed apartments going here. So let's do lot depth is going to be 2, lot width is going to be 1. And then what I'll do is just plop. Oh wow, it looks like we have a pretty limited choice of row houses. So I'll just do a couple of random ones just like this. We'll back them up just a tad so they fit nicely within this corner. And then I think in the back here, yeah, we still have our little 2x2 zone. So I'm gonna build a couple of row houses like this, and then a couple more on Dale Lane. And hopefully we can squeeze one more in here. Yes, perfect. And then I think what I'll do is, let's have a couple of row houses like this, and then we'll do an apartment building. And then I'm gonna draw a little path, just like so. So then our zones are gonna cooperate a little better. And you know what? I think this is a perfect location for a little corner store. Let's use the Northeast US pack for this. And let's accelerate the simulation while we're doing all this. So then we'll get a nice glimpse of all these buildings that are going to be growing in this area. And I don't know what to do with these little blank spaces. I don't know if there's enough room to really do anything here. So maybe I'll just let this area develop and then we'll see what it looks like in the end. You know, we're going to have to like detail all of this anyway. So we shall see. But in the meantime, while we're waiting for all of this, let's go across the street and we'll continue to zone in the same kind of format. Oh no, it looks like we're not exactly a perfect grid pattern, unfortunately. So if I remove this road and then try to rebuild it, let's hope that I'm not going to ruin all my zones. So I think it would be cool if we could fit like 3x3 like this. So can I do like a perfect 90 degrees? Is this going to work? Not exactly. It looks like it has maybe a ruin. Okay, my zones over there are fine. What do we do here, guys? I think we might have to hand plop this area. So let's at least zone all of this in. And let's just try one more time. See if we can fix this stretch of houses here. So if I just do that, oh my god, that made it worse. Okay, well, it looks like we're going to be hand plopping a whole bunch of 1x3s in this corner. So let's get to it. Actually, I'm going to start off these homes here, and then I'm going to build another corner store. So basically, how about we just kind of randomly run through all of these? Oh my god, there's actually a lot of choice. And you know what? These buildings actually look kind of cool. Maybe if we have a little row of identical houses like this. And then we'll switch it up over here, go back into the random assortment. And then, you know, maybe on the street corner, let's do like, is there like a 3x2? No, we got 3x3. Oh, these are quite large. Yeah, if we do a little something like this, I think that'll look pretty cool. And you know what? We don't always have to do a series of row houses. What we could do instead is do New York themed medium density housing all throughout here. So maybe we can do like some fours like this. And then I'll build a little alleyway in the back. And then maybe there, let's try that. So now if we zone all of this into medium density, we'll see what kind of results we get out of that. As usual, just a ton of trial and error until you get something that works right. And then here, this triangle lot, you know what? I think we should have a park inside of this. And let's plop a fully functional park. Oh, this might actually be a really nice location for this circular park. Let me just center it here, just like that. And then we'll move some trees. And then let's connect this up to the streets, just like so. You know what? That actually looks pretty good. Not bad at all. And then I think we might actually be able to squeeze in Let's do a small playground. Oh, no, it looks like we don't have enough room. I thought we would have, but maybe not. But we can do a mini park. You know, a little 2x2 parquet like this. And if we rotate this, oh yeah. Or maybe not, I don't know. I'm just kind of trying random things here, guys. Don't mind me. But I guess if I move it like this, yeah, you know what? That's not bad at all. And then we'll finish it up by plopping just a few trees. There, you know, we can do some little pine trees, things like that. Maybe a nice chestnut tree. There, and that makes for a beautiful little park within this corner. And you know what? I really, really like this building here. And it appears to be a nice corner lot. I think it would have looked cool maybe in like this corner or something, but that's totally fine. Oh yeah, and I can't forget, I gotta plop something in this corner. It doesn't look like my zones are cooperating very well, so I'm just gonna hand plop this individual building. Oh, what's this now? Oh, that actually looks quite nice. Here, let's go for that. There, just gonna scooch it over a little bit, put that right on the street corner. Wonderful. All right, we've got a beautiful New York style neighborhood going on here. Now it is very close to downtown, but because of the geography of the area, it's going to be a very distinct neighborhood in comparison to downtown, despite its proximity. And now let's keep things going on Hillside Street. Very fitting, as we have Hillside as a neighborhood elsewhere in town. So I'm gonna line this street with a bunch of commercial lots, and then hopefully with a little bit of zone reconfiguration in the back here. Oh, actually this would be a perfect spot for a little back alleyway, just like this. There, I think we can get our zones to play nice over here. And behind, yep. Look at that. And what I'll do here is I think I'm gonna go right to medium density housing. Let's see what we can get in behind this block. And then same thing here. Can I just get a whole bunch of like big buildings? Yeah, I think these are gonna be quite large. And what I'll do here for these two little blocks here, I'm gonna go lot width 1. And then we're gonna plop just a couple of, okay, well, looks like we're gonna have to use a little bit of move it here, but we're just gonna plop 2 little side-by-side buildings just like this. Excellent. There we go, guys. We're off to a great start in this little neighborhood, which honestly should probably be its own zone, its own little district apart from downtown. So I'm not going to do that this episode. We'll get into that maybe as we grow this area a bit further. But with this area kind of in its growth stage right now, let's take a little bit of time to detail the coastline just on the other side of the BQE. And here, I don't want to go too crazy with the manual ploppage. I'm going to take my time and zone in this area. And this whole place is not necessarily going to be a whole bunch of skyscrapers and big buildings and things like that. I'm going to do a lot of mixed zonage. And wow, this is one individual building. We'll see what spawns here. But let's do some mixed use. Hopefully we get some really nice historic looking buildings that will mesh nicely with some of these taller buildings. So I guess I'll just kind of go throughout the downtown. We'll do pretty much exclusively mixed zoning, I suppose. Oh wow, it looks like we don't have any demand anymore. Quite interesting. But that's okay because we have a ton of work to do apart from actual construction. But we still appear to have a ton of residential demand. That's probably a result of just building a ton of office skyscrapers. So what I'll do in this case is I'm gonna rezone some of these buildings into northeastern style apartments. Oh, it did something. Yeah, something's gonna sprawl up here. But it looks like I may have to hand plop a few buildings after all, because my zones are not really cooperating very well in some of these areas. So you know what? Let's go straight for the default. I'm just gonna do default high density housing. Let's do like one building here and then maybe a smaller one here if we can get that to work, and then maybe I'll just like redo this zone. Nope, it looks like that's not gonna work. Oh, of course it's not, because I have a wall here. Okay, and I can't build anything alongside this road either, so maybe we can have a park in behind here, because you know it's right across from the canal and it's, you know, kind of a prime spot for a nice park. But oh, beautiful. This is exactly what I was looking for to spawn here. This is great. Actually, I'm gonna lock these two individual buildings. Oh, did I screw up? This is not a New York style building, is it? Or maybe it is. I'll leave that as is, and then we got some little shops here and behind the highway. You know what? I'm actually quite satisfied with that. That looks pretty cool. Oh, it looks like our zone, our demand is creeping back up. So then let's just continue with the zonage. We're still gonna stick with northeastern style housing for now, and then we'll let all of this zone in. Oh geez, these are massive buildings. You know what, I don't think I'm a fan of maybe these two. This one I'm okay with, this one as well, totally fine with that. You know, this street is actually really beautiful. It looks like Main Street America, looks very nice. But these two buildings, I think they would be a little better suited for, let's do some row houses, just like this. May take a minute for that to sprawl up just because we got a ton of stuff going on. There, so we'll let that zone in, see what that looks like. We have a bit of a hill. Not sure how these people's backyards are gonna look like, but that's okay, we'll figure it out. Beautiful. Oh my god, I can't believe our demand, guys. Our demand is just through the roof. And look at our money too. Even more crazy is our economic situation. Look at that. So clearly we're making way too much money. We got to be hurting somewhere. How are our services doing? Yeah, so as expected, we're kind of lacking in the education department. It's probably a good idea to invest in some education before the end of this episode. Policing, we're probably okay, although you know what, there's nothing stopping us at this point from plopping a big old police station. And then of course healthcare, I think we're going to be okay. We have this massive new hospital right downtown, very central to the whole city. So let's look at that. Let's get some services in here. Let's spend some of that money that we've been accumulating. You know, we have 8 million in the bank. We've gone from being broke to having 8 million. This is incredible. So Northeastern Police Headquarters. We don't really need another police headquarters or a police station in town, but you know, with this being kind of a historic downtown, I really want to find a spot for this northeastern style police station because it looks just so cool. And if I turn off anarchy and head over to the other side of downtown, let's just see if there's any way that we can find like a really cool spot for this building. You know, it would fit here quite perfectly, but I really like this block as is. This is kind of a perfect block. And I really like these buildings in particular. So, you know what? I'm going to spare this block. Let's go for, you know what, maybe this block, because, you know, I'm not really super fond of these buildings in particular, so let's do that. But this block is kind of on a steep hill. That might not play very nice with this building. Maybe I'm being a little too picky here, guys. Trying to find like a perfect spot for this building in a city that just doesn't have any more room at all. All right, I think I found the spot, guys. Look at this. We have a fairly large skyscraper in the back. We have these two vanilla buildings that, you know, I think it wouldn't hurt to replace them. And look at this absolutely magnificent building. Wow, that is beautiful. Now we have a little bit of terrain glitching going on here, but that is going to be an easy fix if I just build a little key wall just like this. So I guess there'll be nothing against this road, but that's fine, you know. This is a very hilly terrain, and you got to do what you got to do, right? But yeah, I think this building looks really nice in this spot. And I have a plan for this little block here. Just spoiler alert, this is going to be a nice park right in the middle of the city, so it fits really nicely with this police station. Okay, so we got that service down. Let's... Oh, look at that. We got some traffic already piling up. Oh my god. That is wonderful, guys, because this highway is designed to be an absolute mess. And it's serving its function perfectly. Wonderful. That makes me happy. But anyways, moving on now. So fire services, we're okay for now. Police services, we're good. Education, this is where we're going to have to invest a little bit of money, both in elementary school level and a high school. But you know what? I'm going to keep things simple, and I'm just going to use a northeastern style elementary school right here downtown, and then... But you know what? That is just going to bring our capacity up a tiny bit. Perhaps I want to maybe build another bigger elementary school, but the northeast one looks so good. You know, I think I'm just going to build it right here. How about that? And then let's just add our upgrades immediately, just to give us enough capacity. And is that going to bring us over the line? Just a little bit. So what are our options here? Maybe we want to build a third one. I really like the German elementary school. It looks really cool, very historic, and it just so happens to fit perfectly within this width. So I think if I plop it down here, you know, although this is a very Germanic looking building, there are a number of German looking buildings in, you know, in North America as well. So I guess we're just going to mix it up and have a little elementary school campus over here, and that is going to bring us into the dark green zone. So that is going to certainly help us out. And then that brings us into high school. What are we going to do for a high school? I really like the city high school. And is there a northeast style high school? There certainly is. This is it here. Now it is quite large. It occupies quite a bit of space. I think this is more suited for maybe kind of like an uptown setting. For this scenario, I think I'm just going to go right for... Actually, you know what would look pretty cool, I think, is if I just keep this going. Yeah, look at this. It's exactly the same size, the exact lot size. I'm just going to build a high school in the back here. We'll keep it going with the same theme. Ooh, these buildings are quite close together. Not a big fan of that. So what I'm going to do is scooch this building over. We'll add our upgrades. We have a parking lot. but let's add some more parking because we can't forget that we're in North America. So I'm just going to do a modest parking lot. We're just going to keep it simple. And let's do maybe a park in between all of this. I really don't know what is going to fit here. We can probably just do a little basketball court. You know what? Let's just do a chirper park in the middle here. And there we go. There is our educational campus. Looks quite fitting, actually. I think it's going to blend in fairly well with the rest of the city. And with that, we're back in the green zone. And you know what, guys? We did all of this, and I didn't even check my bank account, not even once. And we're still making over 2.5 million a month. It certainly has brought our expenses up, but we have so much wiggle room. I'm not even concerned at this point. And all of our services are at 100%. So I think we have nothing to worry about for now. And you know what? There's one service that I've kind of been neglecting. Our postal service is really, really lagging. We have 2 little post offices in the city. Oh, it looks like the Japan one has no upgrades. I was gonna consider upgrading that. And the only other post office is this one here, which we've already applied an upgrade to. So may as well go for, see, I don't want to do a big post office because they are quite massive for a downtown setting. I think I'm just going to do another small post office. Let's plop this one over here in our little, you know, Main Street USA. Little mini downtown over here. So let's do that. A little small post office. That should bring us over the line. But meanwhile, while this mail gets all sorted out, no pun intended, let's go into telecom, which seems to be lacking a little bit. So our network quality is not that great in the center of downtown. And this is normally where you would want your signal to be at its best because there's just so many people working and conducting business over here. So we're definitely going to want to invest in some better telecom. Network quality is not that great. Network coverage could be better. Oops. So let's build a modern telecom building. So this is going to cost us 1.2 million, so a fair price tag. But then after that, the upkeep we don't really have to worry too much about. And I'm going to plop this over here in the new part of downtown. And with a stroke of luck, look at that. We're able to fit this building perfectly into one of these blocks. Awesome. And there appears to be no upgrades available for this building. And you know what? That actually looks really nice right there. Sweet. I'm really excited, guys. Things are going so well in the city. It is absolutely incredible. All right, so you know what? I think this is enough construction for today. What I am going to focus my attention on just for now is I'm going to detail just between this little area that we've built up. Okay, so I think this is going to be a fair amount of detailing for this individual spot. We're going to jump back into time-lapse mode for a few minutes, and then that'll wrap up this episode. But I think we're progressing really, really well. I'm quite happy with the way the city is turning out to be. We still have a ton of work to do within downtown. Even as far as detailing goes, we have a ton of little nooks and crannies that we have to work at. And that is why I'm going to jump back into time-lapse mode for the remainder of this episode, where I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to detail all between the little nooks and crannies and back alleyways and basically just spiff up downtown a little bit more. And I'm going to start things off by revisiting this little area here where I had zoned in 3 commercial buildings. And the buildings themselves looked fine, but I thought that by custom plopping some extra buildings, I could make this area look just a notch above what it was if I had zoned these buildings in. So I'm going to be hand plopping a row of old kind of like, you know, historic warehouses and historic businesses. And then I'm going to go in behind them and spiff them up a little bit more. So often in behind of all of these industries and commercial buildings in real life, you would find, you know, some pavement along with a bunch of like garbage bins and just random stuff in the back of these buildings. So that is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna create a kind of beautiful, trashy, dirty back alleyway between the canal and the highway. It's gonna look pretty cool. And a lot of what you're gonna see in this time-lapse mode is I'm gonna be placing a lot of trees, a lot of super huge, mature, leafy trees, and I'm gonna shove them in pretty much anywhere I can. And, you know, this is just an observation that I've made in my recent travels to New York. Obviously, the city is very historic, and a lot of the trees that would have been planted manually hundreds of years ago would have eventually grown to be these massive, ploofy trees. So I'm going to be placing a lot of big trees in downtown to kind of reflect that the city is very historic, you know, along with all the old brick buildings that are in downtown. There's going to be a lot of trees in some of the filler areas where I otherwise couldn't really build anything else. And along with a lot of propage and foliage, I'm going to be adding some textures here and there just to make either, you know, the pavement look cracked in some areas. But I'm also going to add textures down on the ground to kind of fill in these grassy spaces. I'm going to be paving them over just to kind of add an extra little layer of realism. Not that grass in some of these gaps is unrealistic, but I just kind of like the look a little better if I add some pavement. And along with that, I'm gonna go throughout the city and plop some parks wherever I see fit to actually functionally increase the land value of some of these areas. And it actually makes these areas look more beautiful as well with these new parks that have been recently added to the game. I find they look really, really great. And at this point, guys, we're pretty much in the final few minutes of this episode where I'm just wrapping up the final details on this build. And then in just a moment, we're going to move on to some epic cinematics of what we've built today. Holy crap, was this ever a productive episode. We have built so much in one episode at just over an hour. So tons and tons of content crammed into one episode. This was a really fun one. I really enjoyed this one. It was a big challenge, but a good challenge is always fun in my view. So that's going to be it for me, guys. Make sure you stay tuned to the very end to check out the awesome cinematics of what we've built today. And with that, I appreciate you guys so much tuning in and watching throughout this whole video. I really, really appreciate it, guys. And thank you so much to my Patreons. You guys support the channel, and it's what keeps me going. I really, really appreciate you guys. And don't forget, everybody, to leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment to let me know what you think. Don't forget to give a name to this stretch of highway. And certainly don't forget to subscribe if you aren't already to get notified of future uploads. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care, guys.